Hello, and welcome to South Asia Diary with me, Mariam Wardak. In tonight's episode, our top story is United States' recent restrictions. Former President Barack Obama asserted that many of the world's problems can be attributed to old men refusing to relinquish their power, and said women are pretty indisputably better than men, which may be true. Given the challenging circumstances for women in Afghanistan, the United States has barred selective Afghans from entering the country. The Taliban, the families, or anyone who have professional or personal connections to them. Washington says the group's repression of women is the reason behind their ban. But in a country where many families have one child or relative who become a Taliban or someone who works in the government because of their expertise, what does this restriction mean to them? Also on the show,
U.S. announces visa restrictions on the Taliban over treatment of women and girls. Can former Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan get over his Long March dilemma? Sri Lankan salons run out of products as government's import ban continues. Festive spending booms in India despite global inflation woes.
Washington's decision to impose a visa curb on the Taliban and subjectively their families has come under fire. It has been slammed as a way of minimizing Afghan relocation. Thousands of young Afghan men are part of the group. Directly or indirectly, it has an impact on their families, many of whom are in genuine need of the visas. Is the United States complicating an already difficult process by making people prove a no Taliban connection? How can one prove no association? It goes as the saying, guilty until proven innocence.
The United States has issued a new set of restrictions for Afghanistan. Members of the Taliban will no longer be given U.S. visas. Secretary of State Antony Blinken says the move is in response to the Taliban's constant repression of women and girls. He points out that even a year after the withdrawal, girls and women in the Taliban-ruled country have limited access to secondary education. Rules are preventing them from working, even choosing a career path of their choice. Knowing the Taliban, the repression list is considerably long. Women lack privacy, rights, the freedom of movement, and what we saw recently, a violent crackdown of dissent. Taking action on which the U.S. State Department statement issued a notification where it announced visa-restricting actions for current or former Taliban members, members of non-state security groups, and other individuals believed to be responsible for or complicit in repressing women and girls in Afghanistan. Washington's decision has been hailed by many activists. They say this is the right treatment meted out to the Taliban leadership. But there are critics as well. The statement, if you see carefully, does not seem so black and white. There are a few catches. First, what does the U.S. aim to achieve with the restrictions? The Talibs in power. Those who take the discriminatory decisions have never really chosen the U.S. as their haven. Their destination of choice has been the Middle East or neighboring Pakistan. Remember, in years leading up to the withdrawal of U.S. troops, all talks involving American and Talibani officials took place in Qatar. And when it comes to no more Talibs, in a country where more than 50% of the population is struggling to put food on their table, can they afford the expensive U.S. visa? The State Department readout mentions another thing. The restrictions will also subjectively impact the immediate family members of the Taliban. Practically, there are many families in Afghanistan where a member is part of the extremist group in power. They might not be influential, but are linked to the Taliban. Some of these families might be in dire need of an American visa. to lead lives free from the shackles of oppression. The visa restrictions bring an additional burden on those seeking to leave the war-torn country, where they would have to prove there are no links with the Taliban. Applying for a US visa if you are an Afghan is already complicated. Many people who worked for the United States military through the years are still in limbo, hiding from the group's eyes to avoid persecution. And the latest curbs can prove a hurdle to a few of them. A question that arises here is, what is the US trying to achieve with its latest move? Is Washington subtly trying to minimize Afghan relocation? Or is it a response to the much called for action against the Taliban? South Asia Bureau, WION, World is One.
After his initial incomplete attempt, former Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan has announced another long march. The dates have not yet been disclosed, neither has the venue. Khan is double-guessing his popularity. Will there be a crowd prominent enough to prove his point, or will it be a disappointing déjà vu? WION's Pakistan Bureau Chief Anas Malik gets you the report.
Months after the mega march to Islamabad and several high-decibel speeches, former Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan will be holding another massive rally very soon. The date has not been announced yet, but party members are constantly putting out messages, building up momentum, posting tweets implying a fortnight announcement. The last rally Imran held was on the 25th of May. Back then, things got heated with the ruling Shehbaz Sharif government. On reaching the capital Islamabad, the crowds got out of control, forcing the former prime minister to call off his march in its final leg. Khan has constantly been asking his party to prepare for the next long march, after the last one was left incomplete in May. But no one in the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf has a clue on when and where it will be planned. The Sharif government, meanwhile, is not taking any chances. They have been preparing their plans to stop the long march. The Pakistan Interior Ministry held a meeting where they decided to call in the army under Article 245 of the Pakistani Constitution. Drones and provisions of tear gas are also being arranged for the police personnel in preparation for the upcoming unannounced march. During the first long march held soon after his ouster, Imran was unable to initially gather a large audience. The PTI's main support base is the middle-class people. Those who have most often come out in large numbers. Many of the rallies have had grounds packed, roads jammed. But the May march had a disappointing footfall. This time to ensure that when Khan leaves, he has people with him. He has been going around city to city to drum up support. Party members have even been asked to ensure that workers go door to door.
ये जो अब हम मार्च करेंगे, ये इंशाल्लाह पाकिस्तान की तारीख की सबसे बड़ी पाकिस्तान की तारीख की प्रोटेस्ट मार्च होने वाली है। और इंशाल्लाह ये जो इस बारी हम इस्लामाबाद की तरफ आएंगे, राना सनाला तुम और शहबाज शरीफ उल्टे भी लटक जाओ, कुछ नहीं कर सकोगे। मैं आपकी सारी पिंडी की क़यादत को कहना चाहता हूं कि आपने हर ओहदेदार को पैम्फलेट्स देनी है हकीकी आजादी की।
टीवी पे जो लोग हमें देख रहे हैं वो भी हमारे साथ शरीक हो जाएं।
Since being forced to leave office, Imran Khan has also been holding mammoth rallies.
मैं
He has asked his workers to take a pledge, an oath of allegiance, an oath of real freedom.
Imran Khan's dilemma whether he would be able to gather people in numbers for his long march or not remains in place, given that in the previous long march he did not have many people for his support. The government is taking no chances, and containers like these have been placed across Islamabad in order to bar the protesters from reaching the capital city. Whether or not Imran Khan is able to get here, and whether or not if he's able to make past those containers to the Parliament of Pakistan or not, that's a question that only time can tell. Anas Malik in Islamabad, Pakistan for WION. World is one.
Sri Lanka's cosmetic industry is at risk of losing its glamour. The government's ban on non-essential imports, including beauty products, is posing an immense challenge to the country's women entrepreneurs. They are now being forced to cut down their staff. At worst, pull their saloons' shutters down indefinitely. WION Sri Lanka correspondent Dasani Atauda gets you more.
The beauty sector is vast in Sri Lanka. From salons to treatments, services have always been available for all people, irrespective of their budgets. But ever since the country slid into its worst financial crisis, the industry has been struggling to meet ends. The Lankan government has banned the import of all non-essential goods, including most cosmetic products, to save up on whatever's left of its foreign reserves. As a result of the recent restrictions, the revenue for Lankan beauty sector plummeted drastically. With no products in the market, the influx of customers has reduced drastically. Most people visit salons to get their makeovers done with imported goods, the shortage of which now means those in the industry can no longer offer extensive services. These are things as basic as a normal hair color or a gel manicure is being cancelled due to unavailability. With no customers, some salons have even been forced to reduce staff to minimize losses. Customers in Sri Lanka have lost hope for the near future. There is a sense of dissatisfaction with the unavailability of services. And to add to their woes, prices of even the most standard of services have now been bumped up. The overwhelming feeling is that the overpriced manicure might not be worth spending your hard-earned money on. Sri Lanka's beauticians have warned that if the ban on imports of beauty products is not lifted, then the forthcoming festive and wedding season is bound to suffer with an out-of-stock situation. The Chamber of Cosmetics says that many individuals are now hand-carrying commercial quantities of cosmetics, depriving the country of much-needed revenue. It could have been earned through proper channels of importation. In a bid to enable businesses engaged in the sector to stay afloat, the CCI has urged the government to remove the temporary import ban on cosmetic products at the earliest, to allow the businesses to capitalize on the upcoming Christmas and New Year season. They say the import of cosmetics does not require large sums of US dollars and will not hurt the foreign exchange stance of the national economy.
We've been walking to many beauty parlors and salons across Colombo where a majority of them are still voicing the same sentiment, and that is that they feel Sri Lanka's ban on non-essential items, which include a majority of beauty products, is quite unfair as it has now directly impacted their careers and livelihoods. A majority of these workers at these salons are now of the view that it is high time to shift their careers from the beauty industry to another more viable career as well. Sri Lanka's beauty community is quite large and is heavily reliant on imported products, especially when it comes to that of bridal hairdressing and makeup. Sri Lanka's ban on non-essential services and products appears to be quite costly, and the beauty industry is struggling. Reporting for WION World is one from Colombo. I'm Dasmia Tauta.
The war in Ukraine has slowed down the world economy. Inflation is on the rise. The cost of living crisis is biting people. But in India, something quite the opposite is at play. There has been an uptick in sales for the last few weeks. The big festive season is here. People are making all kinds of purchases, from cars to clothes, at times even homes.
Indian consumers are lapping up everything from cars to houses and televisions. As the festive season sets in, spending has increased in the South Asian nation, giving a boost to growth prospects despite economic gloom elsewhere in the world. Indians will celebrate the Hindu festival of Diwali next week. Ahead of this, markets are bustling across the country. Online and offline sales combined are expected to cross $27 billion this year, almost double the amount spent in the pre-COVID period. Jewelry is one of the biggest buys in the festive season. Purchasing jewelry at this time of the year is considered auspicious by Indians. Another big buy is apparel. People are visiting stores, buying new clothes, new shoes, all to ring in the festivities.
Now, post-pandemic, we feel nice to see the market and sales reviving, and we hope that the future will be good for us. The market is picking up momentum, especially during the festival season of Diwali and Karwa Chauth. In the last few years, we used to see a sale growth of only 30 to 40%, and now we are seeing very good growth.
Now we are seeing a very good growth.
What else picks up during the season? Well, auto sales. Experts say auto sales rose 57% during the 9 most auspicious days in the Hindu calendar. This number was nearly 1/5 higher compared to the pre-pandemic period in 2019. There has been an uptick in tourism as well. After spending 2 years under the shadow of the pandemic, Indian citizens have grabbed the opportunity to travel.
In the past 2 years, we were all isolated, secluded. We lived inside our homes, home locked. So it really feels very good to come here. And also the business, also many people, they were very affected. And now everything is hopefully okay.
The boom in India comes despite economic challenges elsewhere in the world. With broadening inflation in the aftermath of the Russia-Ukraine war and sharply higher interest rates, the retail boom helps the economy as well, taking up the goods and services tax collections, a barometer of consumer demand. South Asia Bureau, WION World is One.
Rising sea levels and devastating floods are wreaking havoc in Bangladesh, living constantly under the threat of dislocation. Residents in the country's low-lying coasts are facing an existential threat. The surging water levels is a death sentence to their crops, while frequent flooding washes away the structure they once called home.
For generations, Paban Boroi's family guarded a temple to Lord Shiva, the Hindu god of destruction, until Bangladesh's mighty Padma River wreaked havoc of its own. The temple, along with 200 houses, was wiped away. The 70-year-old lady is among thousands of Bangladeshis who will be rendered destitute this year. Surging waters and eroding lands are reshaping the landscape, a natural phenomena exaggerated by climate change. One day in September, the waterway abruptly changed course, and a swath of Barois village vanished, as the very land on which it stood was washed away. Bangladesh is a delta country crisscrossed by more than 200 waterways. Each of them is connected to the Ganga and Brahmaputra rivers. Periodic flooding that inundates homes, markets and schools has always been a fact of life for the tens of millions of farmers and fishermen who crowd the river's banks. But scientists say climate change has increased the severity and frequency of the phenomena. There is now more erratic rainfall, causing frequent cyclones and flash floods.
Water diplomacy. If there will be any climate change, so definitely there will be change in the rainfall pattern, or there will be a erratic rainfall, and there will be change in the discharge. Discharge, I means the flow. So if the flow will increase, so definitely there will be increase in the erosions. So we are expecting if there will be a change in the rainfall pattern by 2050 or end of this century, there will be a chance, the probability of the erosions increase around 5 to 10%.
This year, Bangladesh saw record flooding. More than 100 people were killed and 7 million temporarily cut off from the rest. The impact is expected to worsen significantly in the coming decades. With the sea levels rising, thousands living along the low-lying coastline fear displacement.
With respect to riverbank erosion, clearly these flooding events, the country seems to be going through a cycle of droughts and then storms, more severe storms. And this is by far, is a clear signal of the impacts of climate change.
At the upcoming COP27 summit, Dhaka will present a national plan. It is aimed at helping people manage increasing natural disasters and extreme weather calamities triggered by climate change. Bangladesh, a low-income developing country, has made very little contribution to global carbon emissions, but is among the countries worst affected by the impact of it. The leaders will go and present their plans on the world stage, ask for action, call for climate funding, but for the people who have lost their homes, lifelong savings, speeches do not matter much. It is action that counts. South Asia Bureau, WION World is One.
That's all we have for you on this episode of South Asia Diary. We'll be back next week with a brand new lineup of stories. Until then, stay safe. I am Mariam Wardak and you are watching WION World is One.